Sometimes people come into our lives and they're like angels. And we don't know how or when or where or why they found us, but they did. And I do believe they're gifts from God. I was cleaning out my drawer the other day and I found this letter that I'd saved from 4.5 years ago from what I always told my husband, she's my angel lady. We would call her Clarence the Angel because she would appear in my life right when I need her and then she'd disappear. And then she'd come back and then she'd disappear. And she'd have these words of wisdom. And she was really a guiding beacon for me in my transformation to becoming a healer, an intuitive healer. So how the story goes was I was a new director at the sanctuary and I had not wanted to be a director or a boss anymore after I had been fired. I was in this time of really wanting to heal, and I was healing past wounds, and I was just in a very dark place. And yet, you know how life goes, you have to just keep picking up and going forward because of the demands of life, of supporting a family, of going back to work and things like that. So staying home and licking my wounds was not an option. But God had a different plan for me, and he had sent this beautiful angel, I'll call her my angel lady, into my life. So it was one day I was sitting at the sanctuary where I was the fitness director and I had the worst headache. I have a very sensitive body, and I think I had eaten some things the night before that caused this raging headache. And also I was just tired. I had to be at work at 5:30 in the morning every day, and I was also exhausted just from the emotional trauma of this whole event that I had gone through. So I'm sitting at my office and I was just pounding, my head was pounding. And this woman sits right next to me. She had been hired by the front desk to do reservations. And I remember her just sitting next to me and she was waiting to get her orientation. And she kept talking to me. And I just remember sitting at my computer going, oh my gosh, my head is raging. I have to get the fitness schedule out in an hour. I cannot talk with her. And usually I'm very nice and jovial. But this one morning, I actually turned to her and I said, thank you so much for talking with me, but I don't mean to be rude. I have a really bad headache and I need to get the fitness schedule out. So if you don't mind, I'm just not going to talk. And she goes, I understand. Would you like some Reiki? And I go, well, yeah, I would love some Reiki because my mom was a Reiki practitioner before she passed. And I know that's very healing. And she said, well, can I give you Reiki? And I said, yes, I would love some Reiki. So she sat and put her hands, I remember so distinctly, over my head and just sat there and just prayed over me. All of a sudden, my headache lifted. And I remember I turned to her and I said, what are you? She goes, I'm just an intuitive person and I knew that you needed some relief. And she sat down in the chair and she looked at me and she said, I want to let you know that what you are going through, what you had been through in the recent past was not your fault. You did nothing wrong. And so I want you to know that you've been released from any guilt or shame that you feel from what happened to you. And I said to her, how do you know what happened to me? She goes, I just know. I'm here to tell you, you're okay. You did the best you could. It is time to move on. And I looked at her and I said, how do you know this? I was so confused. And she actually scooted her chair close to me, put her hands on my lap and said all these things about my life that I never even met her, nor how would she even know? She was reading my life and my family and my personal life of how I grew up like a book. And my head was spinning, and she actually got down on her hands and knees and held my feet, and I started bawling. And I remember, I'm in my office, and my office has all these windows out to the gym, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing, but oh my gosh, I need this so bad. So I told her, I said, please, I want your prayers, but let's go into this little office. So we went into this other little office. We shut the door. She got down on her knees, and she held my hands, and she held my feet, and she prayed over me. And I bawled and bawled and bawled and bawled. And then once I wiped my tears and she just sat there in the most kindest, gentlest way, I said, how can I get more of this? I need more of this. I am so broken. I don't even know what end is up right now. And she said, I would love to give you a session. She goes, but I have a message for you. You are going to be one of the most mighty healers the world has ever known. And I remember going, I don't even know what you're saying. And it gives me chills right now because I was so broken and I still don't even know what that means. But it was a beautiful message that I just didn't know where it was coming from. And I said, I would like a session with you, but I work 6 days a week and I work long hours and I don't know how I can have a session with you. She said, well, I'll do a distant Reiki session on you. And I go, I need so much healing. I just need so much peace in my life. I'm so confused. My life is turned upside down. She said, okay. So we made an appointment. It was like 11 o'clock on a Friday, I remember. And she says, all you need to do is at 11 o'clock on Friday, set your intention for healing, for what you want healed. And I will be sending you through God that healing from my apartment. And I was like, okay, well, my mom was a Reiki practitioner when she was alive, and I didn't know you could do distant stuff, but it makes sense, right? Because God is God and energy is real, then energy can go anywhere. So I said yes. And so I remember that day it was a Friday or something like that, and I was sitting at lunch and I remember going, oh, this is when she's going to do her Reiki. I set my intention for healing and peace, and it was like a wave of peace came over me that I had no comprehension of, nor I just knew it was from God. I knew she was orchestrating through her love, through her intentions, this healing coming to me. And so after about, I think I signed up for an hour. After an hour, whoops, that was my dog kicking the camera. Sorry about that. After an hour, I called her and I said, thank you so much. I feel an incredible sense of peace. And she said, it will stay with you for a while. Just drink lots of water and let me know when you need another one. Well, at this point, I needed her. Like, I needed her to live right next to me. I needed her words of wisdom all the time. I just felt so needy on her. And I asked her, I said, can I reach out to you anytime I need it? She said, sure. But it was really interesting because I would reach out to her all the times I felt like I needed her. She would always tell me, Kristen, you have all the answers. Just relax into them. And I was like, no, you have the answers for me. I remember thinking, I don't know who you are or what this is all about, but I know I need healing. And she kept telling me, Kristen, you need to learn to love yourself first, then all relationships will fall into place. And so we set up several other times, and sometimes we would meet for coffee, or sometimes she would just come to the sanctuary. She now was working right at the front desk. We would meet in the fitness center when no one was there, and she'd just sit with me and just pray with me and just put her hands on me, and I'd feel so much comfort. And she would prophesize to me about my intuition and my healing abilities, and she kept telling me, you are not going to be here for long. And I'm like, well, I just started here. She goes, you are not going to be here for long. Your calling is to do deep healing for people. And I remember going, no, because I have to have this job. We need the insurance. I have kids in college. We need to support my family. And she's like, the universe has different plans for you. And if you keep saying no, the universe will keep making it more and more obvious that you are not supposed to stay as the fitness director. You're supposed to go on to your healing practice. And again, my head was spinning. Long story short, as a fitness director, each year you have to go through and get these certifications to keep your license up. And so I went to this fitness festival, and I stumbled upon this fascial stretch therapy session by this woman named Renee. And I went into the session. I remember that day, if you've heard any of my videos, I have arthritic knees. I've run since junior high. I've been a runner and athletic. So my knees get a little cranky and achy. And so I was at this fitness festival, and I went to this myofascial release therapy session. It was like an hour and a half, and it was on the fascial tissue and how it helps release pain. After that hour and a half session, I remember going, why don't my knees hurt? Well, the woman Renee had taught us some self-healing techniques and things like that. And so I thought, that's interesting. So I looked on the schedule, and she was having another session the next day. So I actually went to her next one on Sunday, and afterwards had all this great profound sense of relief from pain. So I went up to Renee and I said, where did you get trained? This is amazing stuff. It's like blowing my mind. I've been in the health and wellness industry my whole life. This would be great for keeping people in the game physically. She goes, oh, it's an amazing therapy. She told me I got certified through Stretch to Win, and it's in Chandler. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's in Arizona. I said, thank you so much. Went back on Monday to my boss and I said, this therapy is amazing. We need to bring it to the sanctuary. I said, but I looked it up and it's really expensive and there's 3 levels. And she was like, oh, Kristen, get certified. And I said, well, that's easy for you to say, because I'd be paying for it. And she goes, we'll pay for like $500 of it. I think it was like almost $3,000 or $2,500 for one session. And so long story short, I went home to my husband and I was like, gosh, I really want to be this fascial stretch therapist. And I think it would be great to bring to the sanctuary for healing. And he's like, oh, Kristen, it's so expensive. We can't do that. I said, okay, I understand. So I kind of tucked it off in the back of my mind. So this is where this letter comes in. So I was at work at the sanctuary. And as a director, you go into the fitness classes and you go into the gym and you say hi and how are you doing? And you ask people if they need help and things like that. Well, I had gone before this yoga class and I had met this woman and she was actually a myofascial release specialist and a physical therapist. And so I was talking to her and she goes, oh my gosh, this is the best therapy. This is what I do. And I said, that's so funny that you would say that because I really want to get trained in it through Stretch to Win here in town. But it's really expensive. She goes, it's hands down changed my practice. I don't even do physical therapy anymore. I do myofascial release. And she had actually gotten trained through John Barnes, who's in Sedona. So I'm lucky that I have 2 of the main therapists here in town. So long story short, I left the fitness aerobic room and went back to my office. And as I sat down in my office, I see this letter and I go, oh, that's interesting. And I open the letter and it says to Kristen. So I'll just read it to you. It's really quick. Hi, Kristen. A guest just checked in today and I felt that she would be the next step in your evolution, training or service. Many blessings, dear soul. Jen, that was her name. And she put a little smiley face. And she attached the business card of the woman I had just met in the aerobics room. And she had mentioned the trainings that I was talking to this woman about. So I ran to the receptionist desk and I was shaking. I said, Jen, how did you know I was interested in this? And she goes, I didn't know. She goes, the universe told me. When I met that woman, she checked in. I knew I was supposed to get her business card because I know this is the next step for you in your healing evolution and in your healing of your soul. And I said, oh my gosh, this is so weird. I just was talking to her in the aerobic room. And so I just said, I am listening, God. I am hearing you. Because if you watch any of my videos, this is how any major thing that happens in my life happens for me. It comes divinely. And I know with all of you, it does the same. We just need to open our eyes to these divine synchronicities. So I went home that night. I showed my husband, oh my gosh, and I showed him the business card. And I said, Mike, I have to do this. I have to. God is calling me. And he goes, okay. So I took the leap of faith. And so I told Jen, the angel lady, I said, I'm going to take the Stretch to Win certification. That's where I feel most led, not the John Barnes one right now. And she said, that's perfect. I said, but I'm really nervous about A, taking a week off of work, and B, the actual cost of this. And she said, Kristen, your first paycheck, once you're done with this certification, your first level will double. And I said, okay, I'm claiming that. I went to the certification, fell in love with it. Oh my gosh, just loved it and was so on fire with it. Came back to the sanctuary that next week, started to tell everybody, oh my gosh, I got certified, to all the clients and the members and the guests and things like that. They started to sign up with me. And before I knew it, that first paycheck doubled. See, as a fitness director, you get an X amount for being the director, a steady salary. And then you get extra because I'm a personal trainer, now a fascial stretch therapist. I also am a spin instructor, yoga, all those things. So TRX. So anything that I did extra would be extra money. Well, so my paycheck doubled because I started to tell people about this therapy and they couldn't get enough of it. The healing was happening off the charts. And so I do want to segue a little bit. One of my clients, who is still a client of mine today, has an incredible bad back. And he was a client at the sanctuary. And I remember telling him, I mean, he would never let anyone touch him, nobody touch him because he had such a bad back. But I said, oh my gosh, you've got to try this therapy. It's super healing. And he said, I don't let anyone touch me. I said, let me give you a session. And he goes, okay. And so once I gave him an hour session, and at the end he goes, Kristen, my back's going to hurt tomorrow. And I go, no, it's not. He goes, my back's going to hurt tomorrow. And I go, no, it's not. And he goes, yes, it is. And I said, well, I don't think so. So we sat there and we argued kind of, but he was very scared, and I get it because his back would get thrown out like that. So at the very end of the session, I knew to send healing to his back. And I was just sitting there at the top of his head. And this is before I even became Reiki certified. I just knew the power of God. And so I was picturing his back with the white light and the healing. And as I'm behind his head, he goes, what are you doing? And I go, what do you mean, what am I doing? He goes, I feel it in my back. I know what you're doing. You're doing some voodoo stuff. And so I laughed. I said, I'm just sending healing. He's like, well, he goes, I'll let you know this week when my back goes out. I'll give you a call. And I go, well, okay. It was like a Friday. And then by Monday I get to work and I see my messages, and I listened to the message, and it was from my client. And he's like, you are a witch doctor. You know, he was going on and on. He goes, my back feels amazing. And I've never had my back feel so great. And he goes, what did you do? And he goes, I want more. So anyways, long story short, 4.5 years later, he's still a very steady client. So I have to laugh at that little segue there. But anyway, so Jen and I, my story with Jen and I is as I was becoming more and more intuitively inclined, as she had told me I was going to be, I remember telling her, like, I don't want to see things that I cannot understand. And I don't want to hear messages that are from the other side. Like, I was resisting. And she goes, Kristen, that's your divine destiny. So you can resist it, but it's coming. You just need to relax into it. And there's nothing to be scared of. Also at this time, I was going through my 2nd level training of the fascial stretch therapy, and then eventually I went through my 3rd level. So each time I went through a level, my intuition and the healing that was coming through my hands was getting more and more profound, to where, if you watch any of my videos, to where I'm at today, where I feel like God comes through and just delivers the healing and gives me insight and intuition on what's going on in the people currently and in their past that have led them to the here and now, where they're in pain emotionally or physically. So my story goes with Jen as I was getting more and more trained, and not only getting trained in this amazing therapy, but also going through the dark night of my soul. Like, I felt like a puddle of nothing almost. And she kept saying, Kristen, you need to be broken down in order to be built up. God is transforming you. You need to go through this. You need to go through the dark night of the soul. And so she would give me these words of wisdom that would feed my soul. And we would meet every now and then, and she was my lifeline, to be honest. And I remember this one time, she told me, Kristen, she goes, you're not going to be at the sanctuary anymore, starting March of, I think it was 2018. She goes, you're not going to be at the sanctuary anymore. You're going to be on your own. I said, no. She goes, Kristen, this is your divine destiny. You're either going to rest into it, she always would tell me that, or you're going to fight it, and it's just going to get louder and louder. You have been called to healing. And so I said, well, how will I know? That's such a scary thing. Like, we need my income. We need the benefits and all that stuff. So what she did was say, listen to dreams and listen to visions that you see. And I said, okay. So I remember I was listening, and I had a dream this one night of Dr. Mark. And so, excuse me. I did not have a dream of Dr. Mark. I had a dream of Mark, Teacher Mark. And I remember thinking, who's Teacher Mark? And I woke up that next day and I go, Mike, I had a dream of Teacher Mark. And I went through my head and I thought, is it Mark, our friend? I'm like, no. Is it Dr. Mark? So that's why I said Dr. Mark. Is it Dr. Mark, who had been our chiropractor for years, as our family chiropractor, and really helped our son, our youngest son, who had a lot of health issues, to help him to heal. And so I said, Dr. Mark, is that what it is? And I felt the intuition, yes, that was Dr. Mark. So called Dr. Mark. I said, hey, Mark, it's Kristen. I just need to sit down and talk with you. I want to tell you where I'm at in life and what's going on. He's like, sure. So made an appointment, sat down with him. And as soon as I sat down with him, I told him I'm a fascial stretch therapist. I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth. He's like, Kristen, do you want to rent the office? Right. He had owned this big office, but there were 3 empty offices. One was his treatment room, one was his actual office, and then one was empty. He goes, "Do you want to rent that office next to me?" And I said, "How did you know?" That's what I was going to ask. He goes, "Well," he goes, "I have been praying on someone that I trust, that I know, that I know is into healing, to rent this place." And he goes, "And I've had so many people come to me and they know none of them felt right." He goes, "But this feels right and you can have it." And I said, "Well, wait, hold on. I don't want to manipulate anything. I just want to make sure that I'm stepping into what God wants me to do." And I go, "You go home and talk to with Alicia," that's his wife. "I'll go home and talk with Mike, and let's just pray on it." He goes, "Well, Kristen, I can already tell you she's going to say yes. She loves you and we love you, and we trust you, and we know that God is doing mighty things in you." And I was like, "Okay, all right." So went home, prayed on it, got a total confirmation, felt intuitively that March was the time. I had told Mark, Dr. Mark, I said, "March just feels like the time." And that coincided with what Jen was saying, my little angel lady. So I said, it was around Christmas time. And I said, in March, I'll just do it. I'll just take that leap of faith. And so long story short, took the leap of faith, moved into the office next to Mark, still wasn't ready to totally release the sanctuary because that's just me. I step into things. So I was over at Dr. Mark's, and I still had the sanctuary, and I wasn't the director, but I still had some clients and still taught some classes. So I was doing two different places, mostly at Dr. Mark's and a little bit at the sanctuary. At that time, then my business started to progress more and more, and the sanctuary people started to want me more and more. So I started to do the sanctuary people at the house. See, I was baby stepping into everything because I didn't feel like I had the knowledge or the courage to actually just cut everything off and just be totally on my own. I guess that was my lack of faith in where God was calling me. Long story short, 4.5 years later into my own practice, I have never looked back. And our God is amazing. And if I can give you any insight, is open your eyes to the wonder and mystery of life, that God will send angels just when you need them. He will send messages if you ask. He will send divine guidance. He will send people into your life to orchestrate. Just step into faith. And the other thing that I started doing nonstop, and it's still, if you watch any of my videos, is being silent in prayer and meditation. And so I'm going to do another video just again on how to do that, because I am going to tell you, everyone out there is so transformative. When we step out of our linear brain, when we step out of our thinking brain, and we step into the wonder and mystery, do we allow God to come through and to move people, places, and things in our lives that don't logically make sense, but it does in His economy. So I wanted to just spread that little bit of joy of my life story. I have so many of them. I really one day do want to write a book, because if we all do just look around us, there are miraculous signs everywhere. Thank you and have a great day.